Okay, thank you, everybody. Glad you're here. And just want to go back to the reading number one. This comes from the 24-hour book, um, and just when how it works talks about what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now. One of the ways for me to go at that is to realize that what I was like was totally identified with and under the living under the tyranny of my human body and brain. And if anything, what this work has done is allowed. I mean, I think I always believed in a soul, but until thinking about that more and more, and particularly reading this book, Journey of Souls, which has changed things for me a lot. Um, the soul wasn't as much of a, well, it definitely wasn't a priority. And most of the time I was in conflict because for me, nothing was ever kind of just right. Things were, I wasn't happy with something about the way things were. And uh, any rate, the being aware of my soul and believing that my soul will survive my body mind's death has just changed my feeling about my life tremendously. I don't have the same fear of death that I used to carry, and I do believe that the act of prayer. We're talking about step 11, and we're going to read the actual words of the book. If you've got a big book handy, we'll be starting at the bottom of page 85, right after step 10. Um, that I believe the purpose of my uh, one of the purposes of prayer is to improve my relationship with my soul, to diminish my immense concern with my body and my mind, and trying to um, seek or avoid whatever it wants or is afraid of, and to allow my soul to step forth. And we say often, I know in terms of my body and my mind, I have some power. I can change the way it feels by doing certain things, or the way it appears, or I can choose what I eat, but after that I have no idea what's going on. And it's the same with literature. I can choose what I'm going to read, but the if what happens after that, I don't know. Any rate, um, I believe the purpose of prayer is bringing forth the we're going to read later on. Um, we're trying to gain access to inspiration, intuition, hunches, it even calls it, and that comes from the soul, not from the intellectual, logical mind. So I love this reading. It's an old Oxford group thing. This reading number one, that your life has been given you mainly for the purpose of training your soul, and I love the way it ends. Accept this belief, and a wonderful molding of character takes place. God, please mold my ideals and help me live up to them. Reject it, and God's purpose for your life is frustrated, and your spiritual progress is delayed. It's a great reminder and warning. Okay, so today we're calling this a step 11 by the book, and that means we're going to read. I'm going to read from the book and talk about it, and then we'll have some open discussion. Okay, step 11. I'm at the bottom of page 85. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. And why shy? What do they mean? And I think it means reluctant. We shouldn't be reluctant to try prayer. And I know it's a good word. I think I was initially really quite reluctant to pray, even to open up the possibility that this prayer stuff is for real. Today, I can tell you, prayer and meditation, that's the circle, and it's the biggest part of the circle and the triangle. And I get a lot out of, if I ever feel confused, all I got to do is imagine the circle and the triangle, and ask myself, am I paying attention to, am I going to meetings? Am I doing recovery work one to another, one with each other in the book, in the steps? Am I attending to my service commitments? And the three legs of the stool, people will say, but the stool, that's not a good word, is prayer and meditation. This is the heart of what we do. If our goal is to pray, well, our goal is to pray only for knowledge of God's will for us, God's purpose for my life, and I carry that out in step 12. The steps are being approached here is that our goal is 10, 11, and 12 all the time. And that's the way that we humbly rely on God, and that's the way we live the life we think God wants us to live. So we shouldn't be reluctant to enter into prayer and meditation. Better men than us are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work with it. And you know what I'm going to say, proper. My sponsor taught me every time I hit that word attitude, I was to think of how it works, HOW, and how HOW stood for honest, open, willing. Honest, that this is trying to move out of my self-delusion. Most of us are living in an extreme state of self-delusion, believing our own thinking. I know it sounds ridiculous. Somebody in a meeting once said, don't believe everything you think. And I thought, whoa, what do you mean? Don't believe everything you think? And now I want to say, don't believe much of what you think. Don't believe what you think at all, because it's my thinking anyway, I know has seriously misled me. So let's see, 1 second here. There we go. Okay, let's see. So getting off here. All right, back on. So it works if we have the proper attitude, honest, open, and willing. And remember that the spiritual appendix, one of the ways that it's ending, just before it says, that the one thing that will block all spiritual progress, quite a statement, all spiritual progress is contempt prior to investigation. And one of the ways you could say what's contempt prior to investigation, it means believing my own thinking, living in statements rather than living in questions. As somebody once asked, what's more important, having the right answers in AA or having the right questions? And the answer is having the right questions. That's what's important, for me to be focused on what the right questions are. And of course, step 10 is the ultimate question. God, how can I best serve you? How do you want me living here on planet Earth in the year 2026? And then after that, it says honesty, openness, and willingness, I think it uses those words, are essential. And then it goes, but these are indispensable. I'm pretty sure I got that right. And I've always wanted to change the word but to and. The honesty, openness, and willingness are essential, and they're indispensable. And one person said in one of these workshops, he said, well, but means to me, make no mistake. Honesty, openness, willingness are essential, but make no mistake, they're indispensable. You're not going to get anywhere without honesty, openness, and willingness. And the willingness implies doing something the ego doesn't want to do. And most of our egos do not want to pray. I don't need to pray. Let's see. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. Be easy to be vague. We believe we can offer some definite, valuable suggestions. Now they're going to talk about step 11, 3 parts. When we retire at night is part 1. On awakening, when we wake up the next day, is part 2. And as we go through the day, at the bottom of page 87 is part 3. So we're going to start with part 1. And most people in AA will admit that they don't do much with this one. I have struggled with it all the time. I have written a prayer that we'll talk about in a future session trying to incorporate. My theory was, well, if I not able to do this the way it's describing it, at least I can turn it into a prayer. And if I just read the prayer, at least I'm making some progress. Um, but it's wonderful, and people that do this, people that actually do this, and they will have groups where they will text or email each other their evening review, and they say it just, and a guy that I have a long relationship with, Big Book Step Study guy, Cape Cod Big Book Step Study guy, he he has this checklist he goes through at the end of the day to do his 11-step review. Janice knows him. It's George, but
Oh, yeah.
so he lives his day with having in mind. It's like Charlie Munger saying, um, write your own obituary and then try to live to it. Write down what you want to be remembered for, and then try to live to it. It's like this guy is living his day with his step 11 nightly review in his mind. He knows he's going to be sitting there looking at this, and one of his goals is to look at somebody and tell them he loves them without moving his mouth or saying any words. And then when he gets to the end of the day, he'll check or write down the names of people that he did that with. So any rate, it's a powerful thing. We constructively review our day, not negatively. We construct. Where were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology, an amend? Have we kept something secret? Where you're only as sick as your secrets that we should tell somebody about. Were we kind and loving toward all? Of course not. What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Yes, of course. Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? This is the value of service, what we could pack into the stream of life. What, instead of being a taker, we're all generally takers. And worst part is we take stuff for granted, I think. But what can we contribute? What can I give? God, how can I best serve thee? All the same kind of stuff. After making our review, careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. Why not? Because that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask for forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Now, this is for me is what I'm doing now. Right before going to bed, I kneel at my bedside. I take 12 deep breaths, which has gotten easier for me. I used to be, I couldn't get to 12 before my mind kind of hijacks my attention and takes me off to something. Um, and what I'm sort of asking is, I'm trying to let the day settle down, just let my mind settle down and see what bubbles up, see what events of the day kind of bubble up that I feel like I need to pay some attention to. And this asking for corrective measures at the end, um, sometimes I'll have a dream, or at least I will wake up with a thought of, here's something I could do differently that might make the situation better. So I think I've said everything there. Okay. Part two, on awakening. Let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. And then before we begin considering our plans for the day, um, we ask God to direct our thinking, and especially ask that our thinking be divorced from self pity, which is fear, dishonesty, which is self delusion, self seeking, which is selfishness. It's always those things: body, mind, body, spirit. Um, the for me, self pity is the emotional part. It's fear. Dishonesty is self delusion. That's where my dishonesty takes place. Um, and then self seeking is usually physical. It's attributed to physical behaviors and things, is selfishness. So dishonesty, fear, and selfishness, those are the primary ingredients to character defects, and And if I can look at those and asking God to direct my thinking, I've never, well, I have felt God direct my thinking, but it was totally unthinking. And it was when I'm laying very still in this depression, asking God to restore me to sanity, and I could just somehow feel spirit at work. Uh, I believe changing the way my brain was acting. My brain was so focused on self recrimination and self accusation, um, that I should know better is part of mine. Um, I'm just going to take a break here to say I was in a meeting yesterday, and one of the speakers said, "You can call me anything you want, but don't call me stupid." And later on in one of the shares, a person said, "You can call me anything you want, but don't call me a liar." And then she went on to say that lying was a problem. She, and it's just interesting. And I think you could tie this into the Enneagram if you wanted to. That don't you can call me anything, but don't call me, and then fill in the blank. Don't call me um, a failure. Uh, don't call me useless. That's one of mine. Don't call me useless. Don't call me stupid. Don't, and just run around it. Don't call me helpless. Whatever it is, and just see what you don't want to be called, because chances are really good that's where you're at. That's one of the things that you are, and why you don't want to be called that. Any rate, um, divorce is an ugly word. Anybody that's been through divorce knows. So God, please direct my thinking, and please divorce my thinking from self-pity, self-delusion, self-seeking. And then they say this is a promise. This is an 11-step promise. Under these conditions, where I've asked God to direct my thinking, and I've especially asked that my thinking be divorced from this stuff, I can trust my thing. I can use my brains with assurance. Um, and then this other thing, which also means if I have not asked God to direct my thinking as I'm considering my plans for the day, and if I have not asked God to divorce my thinking from self-pity, self-delusion, self-seeking, I can't trust my thinking, right? If it's saying under these conditions you can trust your thinking, then if I'm not under these conditions, I can't trust my own thinking. Um, Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. God gave us brains to use. And then this is huge, I think. Our thought life, our mental thought life will be placed on a much higher plane, on a spiritual plane, a plane of inspiration, when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. And that's why we have to ask God to divorce my thinking from fear, from self-pity, self-delusion, and self-seeking. Um, that's a promise, and I think it's a wonderful goal. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. So we're not. This is not where we're trying to. So we get alone and we figure it out. It's not saying that. It's saying here in this situation, we ask God for an inspiration, for intuition, uh, or a decision. Now, decision means not a logical conclusion. A decision means I hear God's voice telling me do this or don't do this. Now, I have had I have heard God's voice several times in my life, but I um, they've been unusual times, and my way of going at this is when I don't feel God directing my thinking, I say, well, here's what I'm thinking, and I ask for a red light, a green light, or a yellow light, and that's a way I'm asking for a decision. Tell me to go, tell me to not go, or tell me to proceed with caution, or tell me to start stopping with caution. And that's been able to work for me. It's different for different people. Some people, kinesiology, they hold their arm out, and if they can resist your downward Tug, it's a yes. If they can't, it's a no. Whatever works. But it's a way to where I'm asking God uh, inspiration, intuition, or a decision to hear something that, and then we relax and take it easy. And I love the tie-in of this to Emmett Fox's Seven Great Mental Ideas, where he talks about the intuitive mind does not operate under pressure. I can't demand the intuitive mind give me an answer. And you're trying to remember somebody's name, you can't remember their name, and it's not till you relax that their name will float to the surface and you'll remember who they are. We relax and take it easy. Don't struggle. Often surprised. Try the right answer come after we have tried this for a while. That means practice. The practice of prayer, the practice of the presence of God, the practice of these steps, the practice of making amends, the practice of all the stuff that we do. To practice means that I'm going to try and I'm going to screw up and I'm going to try again because I have some kind of faith that it will work if I will keep at it. Now, of course, I've got to have, um, well, I'll call it God's inspiration. I got to have faith that what I'm trying to do is what God wants me to do, is part of the life that God wants me to live. Um, Often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the occasional hunch or inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. That's what I'm trying to say. That my connection with my spiritual reality that I'm calling my soul, that is here for reasons that I know I don't know, I'm not sure what my soul is here to learn, although I can tell you everything, everything that I feel like I've learned about the human experience has come through AA. Everything. And all the stuff that I read and explore, I am able to relate to what we do in AA. And I have, um, and that's a wonderful feeling when I get confirmation that what this book is telling us to do is what I want to be able to do. Um, but it gradual. It doesn't have. We're natural. I believe most of us are naturally impatient. I believe impatience is a form of fear. I don't fully understand it, but it's like my being saying, "I need it now," or I'm giving up. I'm just gonna go the other direction or whatever. But I believe it's a form of fear. Um, Inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind, having just made conscious contact with God. Now, for me, conscious contact, I love it that it's an Emmett Fox phrase. Bill Wilson didn't pick it up. Um, and it means that the contact is there, has been there all the time. I've just chosen to pay more attention to something else. Um, Conscious contact means I'm aware of it. And it happens so for most of us that the purpose of the spiritual appendix was to say, we told you about guys like Fitzmayo on page 56, I think it is. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his creator. That's what I want. Most of us don't get it that way. It comes, it comes so much more gradually. And we've talked often about the three levels of miracles. Can't believe it's already 9 o'clock. I got to wind this up. Three levels of miracles where first we realize we're not thinking about drinking. The problem has been removed, and we know we can't take credit for that. We know something has entered our lives that's keeping us away from alcohol, and um, that's the miracle of it. And the next level up for me anyway, is the consciousness that the presence of God in my life is the most important fact of my life. I can say that without blinking. It is. My relationship with God is the most important fact of my life. There's a third level, and that's walking hand in hand on the broad highway with the spirit of the universe. I've had glimpses of that, but that's what I want. Um, that's beyond just made conscious contact with God, and that is living more and more on the plane of inspiration. We conclude this period. Now, they didn't tell us that the on awakening start a period of meditation. He's telling us that after the fact, that we've been in a period of meditation, shown all through the day what our next step is to be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will. You can substitute self-reliance for self-will. Self reliance is relying on my own thinking, not asking God to direct my thinking, and then acting on it, acting on my own thinking. We're careful to make no request for ourselves only, blah, blah, blah. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work. You can easily see why. Well, this is one of the few sentences that I can, I've talked before about the big book step study assumptions. Every sentence in this book is the truth of the people that wrote the book, truth of their experience. And my job is to ask the question, is this statement they're making true for me? Do I easily see why? And my answer is no. I don't easily see why. And I have to add, I can easily see why if I want to, because I don't want to. I don't want to easily see why. I want to somehow make a case for my self-reliance. Then this thing about if circumstances warrant and going through involving other people, saying a few set prayers, many helpful books. Be quick to see where religious people are right. We're quick to see where they're wrong, because then we don't have to do what they're suggesting we do. Like Bill Wilson talking about, oh, I acknowledge Jesus is a great guy and a great teaching. And I took on the things that seemed convenient, I think he says. The rest of it I just ignored. um, Any rate, make use of what they have to offer. And then the final part 3, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the next right thought or action. There are several acronyms, I think you say, for pause. One was pause and use step 11. Pause and use step 11. I heard one the other day that was perhaps another useful solution exists. I thought that was pretty good. Maybe there's another way to do this, different way to do this. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer in charge, running the show, humbly saying each day, thy will be done. Then we're in less danger of excitement. We become much more efficient. We don't tire so easy. Um, we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. You think? The quickest way, I looked up the word discipline, and it basically means to teach, to train. There's a punitive aspect to it, but also the word disciple is coming from the same root, to follow a code, to try to follow a way of life, as opposed to being self-indulgent, just doing whatever myself tells me to do. And then for the third time in this book, faith without works is dead. The beginning of step 10 says, we have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding, mental, and effectiveness, physical, behavioral effectiveness. And that's what this is saying. Understanding without action doesn't mean much. I love that, and I love that it's a major part of our thing. So I'm going to close by reading the prayer that you heard at the end of last week's session. And this is adapted from A Course in Miracles, which we talk about from time to time. This is a workbook lesson. The workbook lesson is number 106. If you have A Course in Miracles and want to look up, and its title is Let Me Be Still and Listen to the Truth. If you will lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept the ego's petty gifts that give you nothing that you really want, if you will listen with an open mind that has not told you what salvation is, then you will hear God's mighty voice of truth, quiet in power, strong in silence, completely certain in its message. Listen and hear your Creator speak to you through your soul. God will silence the thunder of the ego's meaninglessness and show you the way of patience and tolerance and kindness and love. Be still and listen to the truth and live the life your Creator brought you here to live. Prepare yourself for miracles today. Be ready for salvation. Let me be still and listen to the truth.